Hello, I am Julien Dubois. I'm a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft. You can follow me on Twitter at Julien Dubois, and I am very happy to be today at jconf.dev to present you this session on Spring Boot, Quarkus, and Micronaut with JHipster. You might know me from the JHipster project. I've been working on it for 7 years now. It's a well-known developer stack to easily generate and deploy well, initially a Spring Boot and Angular application. That project has grown a lot. We have more than 170,000 installations per month. So we've got a lot of people using it, and so we have a lot of people asking for new features. So a few years ago, we decided to migrate our front-end and not support only Angular, but support also React and Vue. And this has been hugely successful. So in the following years, people also wanted to change the backend. And so we support first other languages than Java. You can build your application with Spring Boot and Kotlin. That was, of course, I would say the simplest option. We also had people who generated their JHipster application in totally different languages, like Node.js or .NET. And of course, we had people who wanted to generate their backend in alternate frameworks like Micronaut and Quarkus, and that's the subject of this talk. As we know that jconf.dev is a Java developer, I'm expecting that a lot of you are interested by Spring Boot, Micronaut, and Quarkus because they are like the three competitors in the Java framework area. And thanks to JHipster, you're going to be able to generate the same app with those three different frameworks and be able to compare them and see, which one suits you best. So we have two goals today. First, to have fun with cool new technologies, and second, help you choose which of this framework is the best for you. Of course, you will have some work to analyze both stacks, but with a working project which is fully generated, it should be much easier for you. So first of all, let me just show you the main JHipster website. So it's here on jhipster.tech. If you go there, you will have lots of information on JHipster. So the normal JHipster, so with Spring Boot and Angular. You can see that we've got more than 170,000 downloads. We've got more than 17 GitHub stars, so not only people use it, but people like it. And we've got more than 500 contributors, so the real number is probably 600 or 700 now. We have a lot of people contributing. Of course, compared to the number of users, we have much less contributors than users, but still we have got a lot of contributors. The project has had a code of conduct very early. We are very keen on welcoming new people to the project as long as they are curious, nice people, and fun people, because we do this mostly for the fun. And so if you want to use JHipster, you're welcome. But if you want to go one step further and contribute, you're even more welcome, of course. By the way, I've talked about having fun several times. JHipster is fully open source. It's owned by a non-profit association. So it's a French non-profit association. I am the president at the moment. I've been elected, but it can change, of course, in the future. And that association works because we've got sponsors and backers. So we've got a number of companies and people giving us money. Our budget at the moment is $60,000 per year, so that's quite a big budget for an open source project, and we mostly use that budget to give bug bounties, to give money to people who fix bugs or enhance the project. So it's also thanks to those people if we can have today Spring Boot, Micronaut, and Quarkus, because we give money to help people who are improving those generators. So enough talking about JHipster. Let's get coding. JHipster is an npm package, so you install it with npm and you run it with npm on the command line. That's the easy way to use it. Well, the normal way to use it, sorry. The easy way to use it is different. We've got this nice online application, start.jhipster.tech, where you can generate your application online. Here, click on Create Application. I can generate it on GitHub, or I can download it if I want to. And I answer some questions like which type of authentication do you want to use, like GWT. I'm taking this as an example because we will use it afterwards in our code. I can choose my database. So this is for the normal JHipster, so the one using Spring Boot. You will have less options with Micronaut and Quarkus. For example, if you don't want to have SQL like having Cassandra, Cassandra is, I believe, only supported on Spring Boot. It doesn't mean it cannot be supported with Micronaut and Quarkus. It's just that it is much more work, and the teams doing those have not done that work yet. They are only focusing on the main options, like everybody like is supporting MySQL. So if you want a safe choice, well, stay with MySQL. Because this is how you generate your project online. You can do it on the command line if you are a more advanced user. If you use Quarkus and Micronaut, you will need to go to the command line because we have not put them here yet in the online app. It's not very complicated. It's just because they are not as mature as the Spring Boot implementation, and we want our users here. I mean, our new users. Yeah, it's for really new people. We want them to have some easy choices, so we are not giving them tons of options, which will confuse them in the end. So let's have a look at the application that I've already generated. Yeah, I've already created it, essentially because it takes some time to create an app. And here we've got only 30 minutes. And as we need to create 3 apps, one for each technology, so it's going, of course, going to take too much time. So this is my Spring Boot app. It's a classical Spring Boot app. JHipster does 2 things here. First thing, it generates a skeleton project. So let's have a look here at security. I talked a little bit before about JWT. I'm just using it as an example, but you can see here that we generate a security code for JWT, and we've got here like a token provider. And this one is, of course, a Spring Boot component. So this is coded in Java with the Spring Boot framework, as you can see, from the imports. We've got Spring everywhere. That's normal. It's a Spring Boot app. And that's the first thing that JHipster does. It's generating that skeleton app that has typically security and monitoring included. The second thing that JHipster does is generating what we call entities. So I've created a very simple entity called foo. So those are business entities. It's a business code. I could have created a bank account or anything else, and we've got a lot of tooling around this. So this is what is important when you want to really create a business application. And here the class, as you can see, it's a GPA class, a Java Exot persistence. We have a Spring Data repository to access it, and we've got here a Spring MVC REST endpoint to expose it as a REST API. So we can have a look here. We've got a post mapping. So this is, of course, a Spring Boot annotation, and we've got some Java code to, of course, manage it. We generate, I'm not going to talk too much about this because then we go too much into the detail, but we generate also a database table with some sample data inside it. So it's very complete. And to validate this, we generate, of course, some integration tests using Spring Boot. So it's very Spring Boot specific. And as we're going to talk about Micronaut and Quarkus, you can imagine that porting this to another framework is quite a lot of work. So that's my backend. Let's run it. As it's a Spring Boot app, sorry, let's just go here. Spring Boot app. I can just execute it like any executable Java code. This is nice because I can just click here, click on run or debug. It's very easy to debug it this way. So let's just click run. My app is going to start. It includes an embedded database. So that's why you've got Liquibase running here. And my app is running. So it took, let's have a look, 6 seconds to start, which is quite good. And my app is available. Well, my backend is available here. So with JHipster, we generate a backend and a frontend. So I need to start my front here. I'm using npm to do that. So it's an Angular frontend using Webpack. So we will have hot reload on the front end. Well, like we have hot reload on the back end. Oh, sorry, you couldn't see this. I just typed npm start. I will do it again for Micronaut and Quarkus. So in case you missed that command, it's going to be very easy for you to see it again. That thanks to Webpack here, I will have hot reload on the front end as well as on the back end with Spring Boot. Of course, we will have the same with Micronaut and Quarkus later. This is going to start my front end, and it's going to start automatically my IDE, so I can come back here, and I'm not clicking on anything. Here it is. So here is my JHipster application running. I can sign in. Default password is admin, which doesn't make Chrome very happy at the moment, but that's not important. So my app is here. It's a responsive web app, and I've got an administration panel here. So I can click here, and I've got metrics, a full metrics from Spring Boot. I've got the else configuration, the else from Spring Boot. So those are the Spring Boot endpoints. So it's also very specific to Spring Boot. So that's part of my, I would say, skeleton application that everybody has got. And then I've got one entity, so the full entity that we discussed earlier. As we can see, JHipster generated some sample data for us, created a database and a table inside the database. And while the whole front end is working, I can edit it and say something, save, and everything works. Oh, Chrome is still not happy about my password. And well, we've got the full backend working with the front end, and that's really nice. But I would say that's expected because that's what JHipster has been all about for 7 years. So, well, you can expect that Angular and Spring Boot work well with JHipster. And what is interesting is what we're going to do next. So let me shut this down. I'm shutting in npm, and I'm closing here my Spring Boot application. Okay, it is killed. And now let me go to Micronaut. So here is my Micronaut application. So this one, if you want to generate it, first of all, let's just have a look here at the generators -jhipster-micronaut repository. So this is where all the fun happens for Micronaut and JHipster. If you go there, you will have some friendly contributors. There are 7 people, but a lot of them work for Micronaut, so they are part of the Micronaut team, and that's also why this implementation is so good. Is because it's done by people doing Micronaut. Well, it's a mix of people from Micronaut and people from JHipster, so we join forces, and the end result is good because of that. If you want to also, I said earlier, we've got issues with bug bounties, so if you want to help, you're most welcome, of course. Well, you don't need to do this only for the money, but it's nice if you get some money out of your work. And so let's have a look at the code. So it generated a project that is quite similar to what we had with Spring Boot. Let's have a look first at this class, the Micronaut app. You remember we had the Spring Boot app. Well, this time we've got a Micronaut app. It's looking the same, but of course it's using the Micronaut API instead. If we have a look at some specific packages, you remember we were having a look at a security package. We've got a different security configuration, but if I have a look here, well, it's still Java, but this time using, again, some Micronaut specific implementation. Well, it's a singleton, so it's javax.inject, but it's working with Micronaut. We can have a look maybe at this one also. So this is a mix. Well, it is usual, I would say, a JHipster code, which has been ported to Micronaut. So that is the base app. And then if we have a look at our entities, so the full entities here. So yes, entity generation work also. So that's the main selling point of JHipster. So it's also working here with Micronaut. And if we have a look at the full entity, well, this one also is using Hibernate. But if we go up in the stack, if we go to the REST MVC controller, this one is using some specific Micronaut REST endpoints. So if we go here at the import, we've got Micronaut everywhere. And so this one also has been ported to Micronaut. So it's looking like what we had with Spring Boot, but this time it's with a Micronaut, and it's exposing the same API. So it's going to work the same for our front end. So let's run it. It works the same way as Spring Boot, so it's quite nice. You just need to click here, and it's going to work. If you know a little bit about Micronaut, it compiles a lot of things while doing the compilation phase. So it's a little bit slower for compiling, and then it's going very fast. As you can see, it's running a lot faster than what we had with Spring Boot. And so my backend is already running. And let me run my frontend. So this time, let me show you my command line. So npm start is going to run my frontend. It's the same command that I did with Spring Boot, but this time I'm in the Micronaut project. And this is also going to run a Webpack with Angular, and everything will work the same. And we will have auto reload of the front end and the back end like we had with Spring Boot. So it's very, very similar. And that's also what is interesting about this. If you are working on a project with Spring Boot, well, two things. Maybe you are interested in porting everything to Micronaut because you like it better. So that's a very good way of learning about Micronaut and see why you might like it better or not. Then imagine you're in a team with different people who like different technologies. Maybe we will have one Spring Boot microservice and one Micronaut microservice. As you can see here, they're going to work in very similar ways with JHipster. So it will be easier for you in your team to work together. If the Spring Boot team goes to work with the Micronaut team, well, they will have similar package names. It's going to work the same way. It's going to be much easier for you to work together. So here we have our web page. As you can see, they changed the logo. So we've got a JHipster Micronaut logo. So you know that you are using Micronaut. They did that because otherwise it's very hard to find a difference with what we were doing before. So still logging with admin. I still got the administration pages, and if I go to metrics here, but it's still working like it was working with Spring Boot. Of course, the metrics are a bit different because you are using Micronaut. So if you have a close look, you will see that we use less memory, for example. But otherwise, it's extremely similar. If I go to the else screen, it's also, the same thing. If you go to configuration, those are the same screens that we had with Spring Boot, but if I look for Micronaut properties, well, we've got Micronaut everywhere. So as you can see, it's a Micronaut app, but it works exactly the same way for the skeleton app. Now let's have a look at my entity. You remember I created a full entity. Well, if I go there, we still have our entity here with some sample data. So it's not the same because we generate some fake data on the fly, but outside of that data, which is meaningless, it's exactly the same thing, which means that my backend is also working. If I put hello and save it inside the database, so everything works fine. So you can see that my REST API is working exactly the same way as it was working with Spring Boot, but now we are with Micronaut. So it's a very good way of testing both frameworks to better understand which is better for what and what you as a developer prefer. So that's for Micronaut as a developer. When you go to production, maybe you will want to do something very specific with Micronaut because that's, I would say, the biggest selling point of Micronaut today against Spring Boot. You will want to use GraalVM to have much faster startup time and better memory usage. So of course, that's one of the big strengths of GraalVM, and that's what we want to have here. It's nearly done with Micronaut. Just let me show it here. We've got a bug bounty here, GraalVM native image. We've got one person who say he's got it working. We gave him a $200 bug bounty. It should be ready very soon. So if you want GraalVM with Micronaut, you will have it very soon here. And that's a big selling point of using Micronaut today. So that's nice. Now let's go to our third implementation. So let's go to use Quarkus and compare it. So I'm closing everything because I don't want to have my ports taken. And now let's have a look at Quarkus. So I also generated the app here. Just let me show you first our repository. So the repository here is JHipster/JHipster Quarkus. This is done by a team of a few people. So you've got 7 contributors. Daniel Petisme here is the person who did most of the work. He single-handedly coded most of everything. We had some little help from Red Hat, but is the guy who did everything. So thank you, Daniel. We've got a company called Nintendo, which is starting to help. We hope we'll have more people helping. And of course, also here we are giving bug bounties here. So if you want, for example, to add, well, this one is not done. Matchable is doing it. But if you want to help here, of course, we've got bug bounties to help. So it's just to be clear, it's a JHipster community doing bug bounties to help to have Quarkus support on JHipster. It's not given by Red Hat, but that's cool. I mean, that's the way we work with everything. So let's have a look at our generated application. Here it is. It's again something very similar. Well, you can see the same type of packages and files. Let's have a look. First, you remember we had a Spring Boot app and a Micronaut app. We don't have it here because Quarkus does not work the same way. We'll see how to start it just afterwards. If we have a look at our security configuration, as you see here, we've got yet another configuration. So the import is using so application scoped. So you can see we're in the Jakarta EE world here at inject. So it's the same package with some different code because this code is specific to the framework. So that's the first thing that JHipster generates. And the second thing is the entities. And so let's have a look at the full entity. This time it's not an Hibernate entity, it's a Panache entity. So Panache is the Hibernate equivalent in Quarkus. And we have also a REST endpoint. And if we have a look at the REST endpoint, well, it's using some JAX ARES code. So that's really Quarkus things. You can see here add pass, add produces, add consumes. So we are again having some very similar code if you have a look here. But this time it uses another framework. So in this time Quarkus. So it's a third time, I would say the same thing, but implemented in a different framework. Let's run this to have a better look. So as we don't have a main class here, we're going to use here the Quarkus Maven plugin. So it's Quarkus dev. If I click here, so it takes a little bit of time to start the Maven plugin. Well, that's Maven. Then Quarkus starts very fast. And then you've got hot reload, so startup time is not very important here because we have hot reload. So like Spring Boot, like Micronaut with Quarkus, we've got live reload on the backend. So well, startup time is not very important, but still it's quite fast here. It's starting in 4 seconds and a half. You remember with Spring Boot it was 6, so it's a little bit faster than Spring Boot, which is good. My backend is running. Let me start my front end. Oh. Let me show you my full screen so I don't, sorry, npm start. And again, we're going to have the same npm process that starts Webpack and Angular and is going to run our front end. We will also have hot reload of the front end like we had before. So it's all very similar. We're going to have one big difference here with Quarkus, so I can already tell it before it starts. The admin pages are not going to work well. Well, Quarkus does not expose the same API. You know, Micronaut is very close to Spring Boot, so it was, I guess, quite easy to have the admin pages for Micronaut working. For Quarkus, they are different, so they are not working. It would be interesting to have them, so that's also, well, I would say some issues to fix in the project. But outside of those admin pages, well, everything else is going to work the same. Here it is. Admin. Let's log in. And so administration pages do not work. So if I go to metrics, it's empty. But everything else, so you saw the admin page, etc. This was working. And of course, my entities are working. So if I go here to the full project, well, I can see here I've got some new sample data, but my page still works. I can still edit it. I can say full here, and it's going to work this time using Panache to save everything. But it's working very well, and that's what is the most important to have because that's where you do your business code. So again, Quarkus is done by the community. maybe there's a little less manpower on it because it's not done by Red Hat, but by mostly a single individual. But the result is really, really good. Of course, the main interest of Quarkus is doing a native build with GraalVM, and compared to Micronaut, well, this time it works. So as time is running, I will not have the time to build it because if you want to build it, it's taking ages. Well, that's the issue with GraalVM. But sorry, you can see here in our documentation how you can run it. So you need to install GraalVM, and then you do Maven package with the native profile, and it will generate a native image for you. This one will start very fast. Well, I did it myself, and honestly, it's extremely fast, and it uses very low memory, so it's a very good solution. And well, it solves, of course, a lot of issues in production. And it's very enjoyable also to have this working. So the main advantage we have here with Quarkus is this native package, which is working. So just to summarize, native packaging with GraalVM works with Quarkus. It nearly works with Micronaut. So maybe if you see that video in 1 or 2 weeks, it will be working. And with Spring Boot, it's still not working yet. We have still not started yet, but you know that the Spring Boot team is working very hard on adding GraalVM support. So as soon as you will have it, well, of course, we will include it. Other than that, for a developer, you can, well, we have seen that we've got those 3 apps which are very similar to each other. Well, all of them uses the underlying framework. So you've got some specific annotations and Maven plugins, but they're very similar. And again, that's what is interesting for you as a developer, because thanks to JHipster, you can choose the best solution according to your need. You can also play with it. It's a good way to learn. And also, if you want to mix and match, well, you can generate one microservice with one technology and one microservice with the other. It will be much easier for your teams to talk to each other because they will have a similar code and packages. Everything will look the same, so it will be much easier for them to work together. So I hope you had fun with me testing Spring Boot, Quarkus, and Micronaut. If you want more information on JHipster, of course, well, just come to our website. You can also follow us on Twitter on @JHipster. If you have questions, you can also ask me directly at Julien Dubois. Well, if you want to join us and improve a Micronaut or Quarkus, well, the repositories are here. The people are very friendly, and we are waiting for you and hoping that you will help us. So thank you for joining me on that session about Spring Boot, Quarkus, and Micronaut with JHipster. As we have seen, Quarkus and Micronaut are very close to Spring Boot, and thanks to JHipster, you can use them and test them very easily. So I hope you will have a lot of fun with those alternative frameworks, at least as much fun as I did playing with them. And well, very soon we will be able to use them in production with JHipster. And with GraalVM, we should also have some very interesting things to test. I mean, which one will be the most performant with GraalVM? Which one will have the better options? So, well, that will be for hopefully next year. Thank you.